Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Stephanie Walter. Thanks for being on the show this morning, Stephanie.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah, she's up early this morning in Mountain Time. I appreciate her being up, making it happen. And a little about Stephanie. She is the CEO. How do you pronounce that name?
Erbe.
Erbe Wealth and Legacy Cash Flow Specialist, capital raiser, syndicator, and real estate investor. She's been a financial educator for 15 years and a real estate syndicator for the last 10 years. Stephanie's passion is teaching people to unlearn what most of us have been wired to think about money and re-educating people on attaining wealth that can be passed on to the next generation. Stephanie, that's hard, right? It's hard to unlearn things that just the way you're raised. It's just the way you think about things. You don't even realize sometimes it's been kind of ingrained in you, right? And I'll tell listeners, one thing Stephanie was talking about too, like she has been able to learn and implement some things like the things wealthy do with their money, and it's allowed her to retire and really to do other things now, right? So looking forward to hearing more about that story, Stephanie. Help us to, I guess, give us a little backstory about yourself, and let's jump into what the wealthy do with their money, and hopefully that includes some syndications.
Yes, definitely. I started my process, I guess, in 2006. I quit my regular W-2 job to become an insurance agent, and have been doing that for the last 16 years. I was kind of from my dad taught from a pretty early age that real estate was kind of a powerful thing. So I would start investing in small family rentals that the goal is just to pay them off when I retired and have a nice little retirement. In about 2016, I started to become curious about apartment investing and signed up with a really great company, RE Mentor, to just basically get a master's in real estate education, and closed on my first syndication in 2018. That was that was challenging because I did everything for that particular syndication, from finding it, negotiating it, due diligence, raising the money, everything. And from that process, realized I didn't ever want to do it that way again. And just kind of decided that I really liked raising money. And so from that point forward, I've been raising money for people that I know, as well as at this point, I have a reputation, and I get about 20 deals that are sent to me a year. And I usually pick 1 to 2 of them to raise the money for.
Nice.
And that's kind of where I am in the space.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate you just shedding some light there. And even, some of those things about, you're leaving your W-2 and then your dad teaching you at a young age, or just instilling in you maybe the powerful, platform of real estate to building wealth, even at a young age. So it pushed you into wanting to pursue that at some point. And so you signed up, you found a mentor, right? You got educated. You did a syndication in 2018, and tell us, give us 1 or 2 key things that helped you to get to that first deal and get that done.
I think a big part of it was just my mindset, and being an entrepreneur to begin with, and just like working at something until you fall over. Because for that one, it was really hard to find the financing. I had to literally go to 30 different banks before I could find the financing for that one. I think a lot of people in this industry that they'll start and they'll run into a couple roadblocks and stop. And I'm not that person. I think you need to really just push through, and know that you'll get there. It might
30 banks is pushing through.
Yes. So yeah, I think just a pause. I am a big set person. I really believe what you think is what you're going to be able to achieve. So, yeah.
I could not agree more. Mindset is so crucial. It's so crucial. What you tell yourself, what you believe, is so important. But where did that come from? Where did you have that drive? Because I think it's hard to teach that drive. Like, I can teach people about real estate. I can teach people easily how to raise money. I can teach people, all these things. However, if they're not willing or they have that drive, it's very difficult, right? And so, where did that come from?
For me, it was, I've talked to my sister about this because I have a young child and I want him to be the same as me. I think it was just, seeing a dad that he was an entrepreneur. He got up every morning at 5 a.m. and, worked sometimes until 10 at night, and just kind of seeing the passion that he had. Is kind of what I see, because I question that as well, because I was a part of, RE Mentor, and there you go through a bunch of training. So you meet a lot of people, and I would say maybe 5%, maybe less than that, you actually ever see or hear from again. They just kind of drop off the face of the earth and don't continue. And that really blows me away. I've also gotten involved with another mastermind that you do pay some money to be a part of these, and it does always surprise me that a percentage of that group falls off, rather than continue through and finish. So you have to be willing to work hard. I think people come into this business thinking they're going to get rich quick, and you can. But there's a lot of work associated with it.
No doubt about it. You have to be willing to work, right? You can't be scared of the time or the effort that you have to put in to get there. And so tell me, Stephanie, I know you're a financial educator. You have been for a long time, and you've been, cash flow specialist, right? I mean, I want to learn a little more about what the wealthy do, or the things that you've done to help you retire, and then also maybe even more importantly, things that they do not do, right? In the ways we've almost been brainwashed, from a young age, but shine some light there so we can also build that wealth, as syndicators and passive investors.
I think the biggest eye opener for me, because along my journey, I was actually, I had my Series 6, which I've gotten rid of that. So I actually helped people with their planning and their assets and everything like that. Soon to figure out that it's really hard to predict what the stock market is going to do at any time. And you think because you go to a financial planner that they get some access to this great secret book where they know everything. And I'm here to tell you, I already did this, and there is nothing like that. You just ask the questions that they train you to ask, put the people's money in things that they deem appropriate. But when I started working with the wealthy and looking at where they had invested their money, I would say maybe 10% of their money is put into the stock market. Virtually none is in 401ks. Their money is largely in businesses. If they are invested in the stock market, it's more kind of like their play money, maybe 10 to 20% of their money. The bulk of their money is in real estate. And not only that, they view their money differently. So again, back to mindset, I always viewed my money, okay, well, I'm going to accumulate it. I'm going to buy a rental property, and the money's just going to sit. And in 30 years, I'm going to be able to access that money, and it's going to be awesome. Whereas they do not let their money sit. They are using their money at all times. They're using it. It's not sitting in a bank. It's not sitting in a 401k. It's not sitting in equity in their rentals or their home. That money is a tool that they use to make them money. And so once I started, it took a while for for me to develop that mindset and accept it. Then I realized I had a lot of money sitting in equity in my rentals, and they were cash flowing a little bit, but not enough to retire anytime soon. So I simply, started looking at some of the syndications I was having people invest in, and invested in them myself. And now I've had enough passive income to retire from my business. And that was just recently in December.
Congratulations, by the way. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
But I want to say, wait a minute, Stephanie, I want to say, that I know there's people listening that are like, 401ks are safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we all have been told growing up, not all of us, obviously, but most of us, or you're taught to, we want that equity, and we want to get those properties paid for as quick as possible, and those things, right? So help us to think through at least those two things, like 401ks and the equity issue, and how you really shifted your mindset towards those things, and what the wealthy, how the wealthy thinks there.
Yeah, well, the 401k, once, I started to see this with the wealthy, I started, reading some books and really kind of educating myself about the 401k. And the 401k has a lot of flaws in it that people don't realize. I'll just use, a client of mine. I talked to them about their finances, and they brought in their statement and showed it to me. And basically, I said, "Do you ever look at this? Do you know where where anything is invested?" No, they don't. So we looked down and saw, well, in the past 15 years, since you've had your money in this, it's made 4%. And she had no idea. I said, you know what, I could do better than that. I could do much better than that. And you could actually get the cash flow. You could actually have money that's given to you every month. I also think about who benefits from the 401k program. When you think about it, the money goes in, you can't touch it. I mean, possibly through some of these COVID programs, you can get it out, but largely you can't touch it until you retire. Do you think taxes are going to be higher now or in the future? They're unquestionably going to be higher in the future. That's one thing. So if you think you're going to have $1 million when you retire, are you really going to have $1 million? It's really going to be the government that's waiting with their hand out to get that money when you retire. And that's one big concern. Another one is the fees. Those are those silent things that most people don't know about, but they eat off your money. I think I saw an article that said, Vanguard said, it's an enormous amount of money that gets taken out if you start investing when you're 25. Somewhere of the terms of, I apologize. I should have that right in front of me, but it was an amazing number. It was almost half.
Just in fees.
Just in fees over the time. So I think people need to, it is a hard step to take, because you have to believe that you can do better with your money than this big institution is, big bank can do with your money. And but I believe in it, wholeheartedly when you compare, as well as what you were saying about the equity in your home. Well, not only in your home, but your rental. How much money what is your return on investment? That's one big thing that I learned getting into this industry, cash flow, return on investment. What is that exactly? On my equity, it's just sitting, it's getting 0%. So to put it into a vehicle where it's getting 20% it doesn't take a long time to transform that money into being able to retire. So, yeah.
So that right there alone is just is mind blowing, I think, to most. And most, if you say 20%, they're going to say, that's just can't happen, Stephanie. That's just a dream. You can't get those kinds of returns. That's too risky, those things. What do you say to that?
I think, well, just not understanding the business, the real estate business, but the syndication, and it's been really eye-opening to me through COVID, is because we have a lot of multifamilies, and they're talking about the moratorium on evictions and all of this stuff. I did a lot of research during this last year to find that in the markets where we invested, actually people were moving more than they had through this time than what they had in 2019, which had actually caused there to be a need for more housing, which therefore our rents have actually gone up in the properties that we have. So it's not everything that you read. And what's very exciting, honestly, about commercial real estate, multifamily space, is the value of the property is based on the income. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, or it doesn't click with them, is that you can have a property and decrease some expenses or increase the rent $50 a month, and you really quite easily can add like $1 million of value to a property, based on forced appreciation. And you just simply can't. I was a single family landlord for years, and you just can't do that same thing with single family homes. So that's how those returns can happen. And that's not an unusual number from what I've seen.
I agree completely. And that is hard to wrap your mind around initially, right? But that is one of the biggest reasons you get into commercial real estate, is that alone, being able to control that and being creative, right? To drive value in a big way, that forced appreciation, like you're talking about, where you have so much more control. Personally, I just feel like I have so much more control over the value of our real estate than I ever could over a 401k. I just, you don't, like you said, you don't know where it's invested half the time. And I don't like that either. When I started learning about, when we had 401k and we're thinking about mutual funds way long before we got into real estate, and I finally started learning that the places that's invested into many things that I would never support. Right. And supporting many things that I was just blown away. Right. I'm like, I've got to change this. Right. Because I do not agree with where this money's at, what I'm personally supporting or even gaining from to some extent. And so I just encourage the listener to think through those things and things Stephanie's been talking about, because you're, think about the equity, think about the 401k. Stephanie, do you plan to ever pay those properties off, or the rentals or the home, those things, or is it, or do you feel like, well, why would I do that? How do you feel about that? I hear that question often.
Yeah, I've actually sold I'm in the process of selling my last single family rental as we speak. And that comes from probably I know that I can place the money in a better place for returns, but also I am tired of being a landlord. I've been one for 15 years, and it wears on you over time. That's another great thing about syndication, is you put your money in and you're not worried about getting those calls at night. As the weather's cold here in Colorado, worried about getting the heat isn't working, the pipe is burst. I'm thrilled, that I'm truly free from that. But no, again, my personal opinion is paying, your rentals off. Yes, you do get that cash flow, but I believe if you sit down and talk to someone who say runs a syndication and what that money could do for you in a syndication, you'd be blown away by the actual cash flow you get on day one of being a part of a syndication. And you still get all the other benefits. You still get the tax benefits, and even quite possibly better than where you're sitting right now in your rental.
Right. I've had small rentals, or that's where I started as well, small multifamily. And I'd say often, like I know very few people who are able to scale, say, a single family, small multifamily business and make better returns, especially when you account for all your time spent and brain damage, right? Especially if you're self-managing. But very few people that have been able to do that and make better returns than if they had just been passive, in a syndication. And so, yes, there's some I know that can do it, but for most, I would just encourage you, just like Stephanie, think about a syndication and educate yourself, before you go buy that single family home, or just have the mindset that you have to start there. Right. So Stephanie, on that same line of thought, from your background is in educating people and financial planning, and now, experienced it with many syndications. How do you like to see operators prepared for a downturn?
As far as what everybody's investing in.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's been really clear through this, through the COVID, is that multifamily is exactly what they teach us, right? Coming in off the street, is that it's incredibly resilient to downturns in the economy. And I've seen that, firsthand. I guess my only qualifier there would be just be really cautious about the areas that you invest in or you look to invest in. We've invested a lot in the Southeast, in Florida. Florida's been amazing through the COVID, as far as they've kept their economy running and all of that stuff. Texas, is another one that's been super great. You want to always look for, a landlord friendly state. And I believe that, just this is my first scene of a real downturn in the economy when I have been invested this way. And I was really pretty shocked at how well that it did, where I believe that little over 96% of rent collections through this whole process. And that, that is, we haven't missed a distribution payment to anyone through this. And I think that speaks volumes of how it does.
So Stephanie, what about the one that's listening that says, well, I've already been, investing in this 401k for, many, many years. What do I do now? What's the best thing for them to do with that money?
Well, I think a lot of people in this industry will tell you to go and make it into a self-directed IRA. And I won't tell them to do that, because I know people and that have done that. And there's a lot of issues with the self-directed IRA. I think a lot of people, especially syndicators, will be like, just roll it in here. It's fine. We'll take the money. You're all good. Well, there's a lot of problems with it, because now, instead of by having their money there, they can't access it until they retire. That's the first thing. The second thing is they get taxed as ordinary income on that income when they start taking it out, as opposed to that they would have just been paying on capital gains on that money. And that's a big difference, actually. It ends up being, I think, almost 3 times the taxation that will occur to them. That's not even considering what the tax rates are going to be in another 20 years or however long it's going to sit there. So I know it's not a popular thing to say, but I believe that you talk to your accountant and figure out a way out, an exit strategy out entirely. And
so get it out of there completely, so you can better invest it and have access to it. So maybe take a loss now, as opposed to taking a bigger loss 20 or 30 years from now. Yep.
And a lot of times the syndicators you work with, just depending, most of, the good syndicators are doing the cost segregation. And those are, this is a fancy term for just a fast depreciation. And a lot of that depreciation can come through. So if you have a real plan to, slowly liquidate the 401k, it probably can be offset depending on where you're investing the money. But I'm just a very big advocate of having control of your money. another bad thing about the 401k that I just put out quick, because I think they changed that, is that when you die, that money is it's not passed on to the heirs. It's taxed extremely high. So I think that that's a big concern that someone should have. Whereas if they own some property, it is something that's going to be passed on to your next generation.
That's definitely something to be thinking about, and why you need somebody on your team too, or some kind of advisor that can help you think through those things, right? And really plan things out. I hired a much better accountant, or I wouldn't say much better. My last one was really good. However, as your business grows or as your portfolio grows, your team has to grow as well, right? And so, we found somebody that helped me think through many of those things. It was very helpful, whether from taxes, tax planning to, different things like you're talking about. But Stephanie, just so we don't run out of time, a couple more questions. What about a couple of daily habits that you are disciplined about that have helped you achieve success?
My habits are, I'm really good at, keeping a schedule. I'm not someone, Monday through Friday, I have a blocked out time during that period of time to do all the different things that I need to do. The largest thing that was probably a surprise in raising money for me anyways is the content that needs to be developed, the articles that need to be written. I'm working on a book right now, and just just that area, which is pretty cool because I've always been very business minded. So to do something creative is cool, but you need to have the time set aside, and you have to just know that between these hours of your day, you're going to be working, you're going to be looking for deals during this time, you're going to be underwriting through this time, if that's the area that you're looking in. For me, it's largely about, acquiring new investors. And so that's really where I put my time and my education.
What's your best source for meeting new investors right now?
My best source of meeting investors, it was, is actually past investors have been a really great resources for new investors. A lot of people now, I'm focusing a lot on insurance agents, as crazy as that sounds, but in general, insurance agents they're great business owners, but they're not very good planners for, or for themselves, for their retirement. So I want to help them, be open to this type of investing for their future.
I think there's a lot to be learned there, because that's like a niche that you can relate to. You understand well, you came from that, so you can speak lingo that, they're going to relate to you very quickly. So I think that's very smart in thinking through that strategically like that. What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
I think that I've had a lot of great mentors in this business. Absolutely can't discount that. I've had a lot of great mentors, great partners, people that have genuinely been interested in my success, and then also just working hard. I think people appreciate that and want to help someone that wants to work hard. But yes, in this business, I tend to, in my last business, is to do everything myself. And this business, you really need people around you, and you need, there are a lot of people that do things much better than I do them. And I had to realize that. And be okay with it and just do what I do really well. So
how do you like to give back?
I like to give back. I'm a member of the Rotary here in Denver. And, but honestly, I do a lot of giving back within the real estate community that I came from. I have made myself open and within our group of people that we all kind of came from the RE mentor group. And I mentor a lot of people in the business. And yeah, that's
Nice.
sort of how I look at myself.
No, that's awesome, Stephanie. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and hear your story, and even just helping us think through not only how the wealthy invest and view their money, but also what they don't do. Some of the things that most of us are taught growing up that's just not how the wealthy use their money, thinking of it like a tool, like you mentioned, even considering, get that money out of your 401k. So it's really more long-term planning, right? Thinking through that, having that planner, like you mentioned, but just grateful for all those reminders and just new information on thinking through your wealth and what the wealthy does and things you've learned. Thank you for sharing that with us today. How can the listeners get in touch with you and learn more about you?
You could go to my website. It's www.erbewealth.com. And there you could either join. We have a VIP investor group that we offer. It's, quarterly newsletter, some good free educational content, webinars, and then you get a first crack at any, new deal that we have come along, probably, like I said, 1 to 2 of those pretty phenomenal deals a year. Or if you're just looking to kind of learn a little bit more, I have a report that you can download on my website, and it's 5 reasons passive investing might be for you. And those would be the best ways to get a hold of me.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.